approval of the country's proposed budget is facing uncertainty, with political parties represented in the government of national unity still at odds over some of Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana's proposals. The proposed 1 percentage point VAT increase over 2 years has been the biggest bone of contention, but Godongwana has argued that it is necessary. Michelle Craig is live for us now from Parliament. Still a great deal of anticipation, with only hours to go, Michelle, for this crucial vote. Just join up the dots for us in terms of what's likely to be expected this afternoon.
Good morning, Iman, and to our viewers again. To be honest, your guess is as good as mine. There are, as you say, so many moving parts. There's the letter that the EFF has written to the Speaker of the National Assembly and the Committee on Finance. It's arguing really on a technicality, a procedural issue insofar as the adoption of the fiscal framework yesterday by the Joint Committees on Finance. And then, of course, there is the briefing by the MK party. That's happening at 11 o'clock, and of course you can catch it live on 405 as well. The MK party will be giving its take on what this budget means, and I suppose why it should not be adopted in its current form. And then there are so many questions around the government of national unity as well. The Democratic Alliance sticking to its guns around the VAT increase. It doesn't want 2%, which was initially on the table. You'll remember that failed budget, the budget speech that never was, and then almost a month later, Enoch Godongwana, the finance minister, coming back with this 1% over a 2-year period, this 1% VAT increase over a 2-year period. So what will the markets think about the government of national unity? Are the markets looking to questions of stability? Right now, the markets have remained pretty much neutral, but I think a lot will depend on really what happens in the dome behind me at 2 o'clock this afternoon. Does the ANC have 50 plus 1% to pass the budget? We know that it's even gone outside of the government of national unity to find those votes in Action SA. So we're going to be covering all of those moving parts for you. My colleague Ziyanda Ngobo will also be joining us here at the dome a little later on this morning. But, you know, when we were here in Parliament on the 12th of March for the tabling of the budget, of course, one of the big issues that we're always looking to is igniting the economy, growth, and, of course, that very stubborn 41% unemployment rate in the country. We know that the majority of that 41% is the youth, so many young people sitting at home without a job. Let's bring in youth capital. Clotilde Angelucci joins us here this morning. Clotilde, and you and I spoke, thank you for joining us. You and I spoke on the 12th of March. That was before the budget was tabled in Parliament. And we talked a lot about what you were looking for in the budget insofar as the focus on young people. Just give us a reminder of what your what do they call it? Your sort of dream list. Yeah, but you know, the ideals that you were looking for, and whether they came to fruition, at least insofar as the tabling of the budget is concerned.
So from a fiscal framework perspective, we were really hoping to see expansions, right? The National Treasury has admitted that this budget cuts and fiscal consolidation hasn't really reaped the right rewards. And so we were looking for an expansion through public employment programs, like a long-term ring-fencing of public employment programs through the expanded public employment, the EPWP, but also the presidential employment stimulus, really to provide young people, the majority of which are unemployed, as you said, and disconnected from the economy and education opportunities, connect young people with work opportunities, but also provide local demand, you know, because the problem at the moment is that because of cost of living, because of unemployment, people don't have the spending of consumers has decreased. So how are we going to expand that? So that's what we were looking for. And of course, we did see like an improvement from a public employment perspective, because there was some funds allocated for an expansion for the presidential employment stimulus, but at the same time, these funds are only for 1 year. So it's never unclear what happens the following year. And this gives young people uncertainty and gives the market uncertainty, gives consumers and the economy uncertainty.
I mean, what we are seeing on the positive side is the focus now on ports, and that will mean that people are able to get to work faster. But the bottom line is, for us to ignite the economy, yes, of course we need our rails and our ports and our electricity and our infrastructure to be up to speed, but we need jobs.
Definitely, and sometimes we forget that we have the National Development Plan, the 2030, that looks at a 5% unemployment, and now we're so far. And then the National Development Plan looks at the narrow definition of unemployment, while we know that the expanded definition is what really, it's like drumming at the beat at the moment.
It's the more realistic picture.
Yeah, and so it's still unclear, I guess, from these discussions where that growth will come from. Even, let's put aside the VAT, let's put aside the zero rating of the basket of goods.
Yeah.
But it's really unclear how people would definitely will have money to get to the end of the month. We know the stats on malnutrition, we know unemployment, we know also, Status has confirmed the connection between educational outcomes and income inequality. So I guess, I think something that we would have loved to see for National Treasury to really put the focus on socioeconomic rights, because Minister Godongwana has also admitted that all these budget cuts has eroded the ability of the state to deliver on these services, and that's why as Youth Capital we think that public employment can fit the bill by providing these services, while giving young people work experience and promote demand in the local economy in communities.
I imagine that for you as an organization working in the space of young people, and there are so many issues facing young people in the country, the uncertainty around the government of national unity, and just the uncertainty generally in how these discussions are taking place, whether they are for political means or whether they are really to try and deliver on the kinds of challenges that we face in the country. That's not a good thing.
So we were, as Youth Capital, we participated in the public participation process in Polokwane yesterday by the Appropriations Committee, and we spent a lot of time with young people living in Polokwane and in rural villages. And something that struck us is the conversation of what the government is deciding now is what's best for their PR tactics, or is what's best for the people. And young people, they're often called detached, uninterested, lazy, apathetic. But I can tell you that with our work, we know that young people, it's the opposite. The problem is are the public participation channels effective? Are they meaningful? And are decision makers listening to the priorities that young people or people living in South Africa have?
Yeah, and that's not the reflection that you're seeing in places like Polokwane.
Well, we know that 8 in 10 young people have to choose between looking for work and buying food.
Yeah.
And the question is the government delivering on that?
Yeah. And I wonder, just in your experience, whether you feel that, we always see Parliament's oversight committees, they do these visits, various committees, and they try to get on the ground and they try to engage with communities, have a look at service delivery and the like. But are they in touch? Do you feel like the MPs that are making the decision, our legislators, are in touch with the reality on the ground?
So most MPs fly to these public participations, and yesterday during the Polokwane participation, one of the young people said, next time you come, please come through to my village and drive through.
So you can look at the roads,
Somebody said Polokwane is called Polokwane because it's full of potholes. I don't think that MPs are in touch with realities. I mean, just the fact that a VAT increase has been put on the table and no other revenues strategies have been considered, it means that there's little touch with what it's like to make it to the end of the month. Research by HSRC said that most households don't make it to the end of the month and they have to take turns to eat. So how are we combining? I guess that's the question. What I think as Youth Capital we would love to see from the budget and from the discussion today is that how are we reconciling that big divide between where the economy's at and where National Treasury think it's at.
Yeah. Clotilde, thanks very much for coming on and giving us that perspective. Clotilde Angelucci is with Youth Capital, Iman, and it's so important to get this. I'm going to try and just step into the sun a little bit so that you can see me. It's so important, isn't it, Iman, to really speak to the issues on the ground. And for many people, as Clotilde was just telling us, for many people, they don't feel like government is in touch with just how difficult it is at the moment with the cost of living crisis. We are the most unequal country in the world, and yet our MPs and our cabinet ministers have very little experience of that. At least that is the sentiment from many people in South Africa.
I mean, the responsibility, as you and Clotilde were saying, is for MPs to provide shoes, figuratively or metaphorically speaking. And, you know, the question isn't, I mean, if you want to answer the question on does the shoe fit, you've got to ask the one who's actually wearing the